Visiting Wilkes County on business or pleasure? Stay in Wilkesboro at the Holiday Inn Express, Hampton Inn, or Red Roof Inn and Suites. Enjoy Southern hospitality, cozy rooms, and a complimentary breakfast. Explore the mountains and then relax with us. You've earned it. Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Thomas, Salley, how are you?
Doing well, Carl. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back.
Well, it's an interesting time we're in now. We always talk about tourism and how great the county and the Carolinas are, and now we're sitting and chatting about one of our more difficult moments.
Yeah.
The storm that has certainly created an experience that I don't think anyone in this region or in the country have ever seen before. Mm-hmm. Why don't we talk about some of your experiences? Because I noticed on social media you and I, as I said, normally talk about tourism, but I've seen you going out with youth groups, with church, with all these different groups, and taking aid to people who are in need. Yeah. How did that happen to you, and what drew you into that cause so quickly?
Yeah, I was sitting at home last weekend, and Saturday I was with my kids, and so I was kind of like, it was still raining, Saturday, and then Sunday woke up, and I really didn't have any kind of plan, but the images, you started to see the images and the pleas come out from people that I knew, people that I was good friends with, and it hit me really hard that, like, I just can't sit here, when I know people that need help. And I got a trailer from my friends that have it nearby, and I started thinking about what I could do, and I was looking at what people need, and it's like, well, how can I get these things? And I used my industry connections to check in. Thankfully with tourism, it's a very tight-knit community, and we have an industry person in every county, and sometimes multiple if they have a big enough town or something like that. And they're all a lot of your tourism agencies are quasi-governmental, so they have, just like me, I have a good relationship with the county, and I can go directly up the chain of command, and they can do the same, so we can exchange information, and I can be sure that it's accurate. So, you start checking in with people, and you get a sort of a picture of what's actually happening on the ground, and so, I used my industry connections to check in with folks, and also, with the wine industry, my friends at Raffaldini and eventually some other wineries too. But I know that they have these like plastic wine totes, and they're basically like a milk jug on a pallet, right? And they hold about 275 gallons. So a friend of mine and that I met through a professional development course, was working with a Latino organization. And they needed fresh water, and they needed food and supplies. They had been without power for, I think, 2 days at that point. No cell phone, no internet, nothing like that. And so I didn't have any materials, and I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to get out there and do something. So through God's grace and my network, I was able to get the water, and our Town of Water fresh water plant filled them up for me. And then my colleague in Statesville, Cindy, was texting me about they were doing the airdrops out of the Statesville airport. And they had people lined up out the gate to give supplies to the pilots. And so they had enough supplies for me to fill up my truck. And so I was able to go there. I got the water, went there, filled up my truck with supplies, and then I drove to Marion that night. And when I got there, they were all set up at the community college, and there was no power. They had like one little generator light in the corner. And, this team of volunteers that had just assembled out of the blue, when they had a sort of an operation going there to unload vehicles that were showing up with aid. And, I was one, right behind me was an 18-wheeler, and there was other trucks and cars and things piling in there. So, we were there to fulfill the need, and they had a bunch of people there to unload. And so, from there, I guess, I started looking at how we could have the greatest impact. And so talking with my friends and colleagues in the industry, we looked at all the different areas where there was need. And I spent a couple days volunteering with Samaritan's Purse. And then...
What was that like?
It was great. The first day we went over into Mountain City, Tennessee, and we did a lot of land clearing and stuff. Cutting up trees, and there was a whole neighborhood that had basically had trees down everywhere, and there were some professional crews working in there. And a couple of the houses that we worked on, they had no utilities, and we helped basically get their yard cleaned up and then prepare them so that when the utility company came through, they could just hook it back up. They didn't have to battle with trees or anything like that. So, and then the second day we went to a house that the basement had flooded, and they needed to remove everything out of the basement and then spray the mold inhibitor and stuff like that. So, we had a big crew, and that didn't take as long as we anticipated. So we went to help our friend who works for Explore Boone, and we were cleaning up around the South Fork of the New River in Todd, and basically the whole town of Todd, if you can imagine. It's not very big, but everybody was out there doing what they could. And then later that day, we went to Newland because my colleague that works at Grandfather Mountain was telling us about the needs over there. And part of my mission was to lay eyes on everything so I could kind of get an idea of what was going on,
what the damage was.
Yeah, how can we get there? Who do we talk to? What and so as much of that as we could do, and then establish a contact on the ground that we could communicate directly with and understand the needs.
Thomas, had you ever done anything like this before?
When I first started this job, I was started back in August of 19, and then 6 months later, COVID happened, and I've been through a few storms and things, but nothing where I'm at this level where I'm at. So with COVID, I was sort of green. I didn't have a lot of industry contacts, but now having lived through that and having established a pretty robust network, I know what to do now, and I'm not going to let that opportunity slip by.
When you begin to see some of the damage, the extreme damage, have you been to areas of where you've seen that? Oh
yeah. We've seen roads and bridges washed away, and then evidence of just how high the water was. I mean, through debris, being stuck in trees and stuff. And one thing that really struck our group was the size of the boulders and how they had been. They're obviously river rocks, but they've been moved to areas even uphill from where they were and across roads. And it's just like, how did that get there? And just the power of that moving water.
Enormous force, right?
Yeah. It's just insane.
Did you see houses destroyed? Or?
Yeah, there was. We saw a few houses and barns stuck out under bridges, because they would get washed off their foundation and then pushed out into the river, and then they would go float until they hit a bridge. You know what I mean? And we saw several things like that. A lot of just creeks and streams and rivers that had changed course because of how much dirt had shifted, and same thing your natural springs were I noticed it was so wet, even days after the storm, there was still so much water coming through, and it seems like that the ground was that saturated, and the fact that these springs that would normally flow somewhere else, there was a landslide or something, then now that water's coming out over here and it's going across the road. So I mean, it was it was really just tough in some aspects to see, and especially that people, I mean, they effectively lost everything, and on top of that, no food, no water, no way to talk to people. We went to Mitchell County, and that trip was really a miracle in itself because I've been talking with some contacts in Mitchell. You try to. They're telling me where to go. You try to map to Mitchell. All the roads are closed. Your map doesn't even tell you how to get there because it can't compute. So we went with a caravan. I didn't even have the supplies to take until that day. We had committed to making a trip. Didn't have anything to take up there until between 4 and 5 o'clock, and we were able to make that happen thanks to the VFW and to Wilkes Emergency Management and the Speedway. So between the hours of 4 and 5, we finally secured the supplies, and we were able to provide them with things that they needed. So we started loading, and then my contact in Mitchell, who I hadn't heard from all day because her Starlink was down, texted me and said, "Oh, by the way, there's a curfew. You should go to Davidson and drop off at this. We have a tractor trailer, and." I'm looking at the number of vehicles that we have and the amount of stuff that we have, and I'm like, this is a pretty significant load. I don't want to take it to Davidson and, mess up their opportunity to get more stuff from Davidson, So we committed to going to Mitchell, and, thankfully we were able to get in. Of course, once we got there, there was no way to, we had radios, and I had a navigator sitting in the passenger seat with me to help run. She had my phone, her phone, 2 radios, and
just trying to keep a bearing on where you were,
and keeping everybody together, our group. So when you're loaded down, it's not easy to drive the same speed. So And then we got there, and it was probably 9 or 9:30. We arrived at the middle school, and that was another thing. Like, the middle school that we went to had just been built. It wasn't even on the map. So, like, we had this destination that we were going to that, according to all the online maps, like, it didn't exist. Yeah.
Right. But you did find it.
Yeah, we did find it,
Okay.
and then, you know, we're there, we're unloading, and thankfully, that was another thing. I didn't know if anybody would be there, but there was a whole team of search and rescue from Virginia Beach that were stationed at the school, and they were just in the process of getting set up, and the shelter manager was a stay-at-home mom. She had a special needs kid. She had a pastor's wife. She was a couple side hustles, you know, and then now she's in charge of this huge shelter operation with special forces, you know, staying with her, and, you know, we're unloading, and then this car pulls up behind us, and it's this young couple in their 20s, and, you know, this place wasn't even ready to distribute items yet. They were just receiving and organizing, but they said, you know, our house just burnt down and we have nothing, you know. So on top of the storm, on top of everything, they lost their house. They had zero possessions except their car, and they just came to get something, you know, to eat and drink and stay warm because it was already chilly up there.
Well, Thomas, you described that one family that you met.
Mm-hmm.
They lost everything.
Yep.
And I know you're doing the task, and you're doing it based upon your experience in life, and you want to do the best you can. But just seeing that person and the other people that have lost things, I mean, has this affected you?
Yeah, I guess Wednesday. I guess it was Wednesday. I was coming home, and, you know, I had dropped off with some. You have the picture right there, and you know, that particular group, their volunteers had already closed for the day, and you know, they my friend Margarita made some calls, and I said, I'll be there at 5:30, and they had already gone home for the day, and so she said, I'll call some people and see if I can get some people to show up, and then she told me she was expecting maybe like 15, and when I rolled up, there was, you know, close to 30 people there. And they were also happy to see me, and then, you know, we all had crack jokes, and, you know, we had a good time unloading the stuff. And then on the way home, I stopped at a friend's house, and they fed me, you know, and we kind of commiserated about what we had been through. And, you know, then after that, driving home, you know, you see the signs that say, like, hot meal or free shower. And, you know, at that point, it was just like, I cried like a baby on the way home because just seeing all the outpouring of kindness and how humanity kind of overcome our differences, and we pulled together to make this happen. So
that's a massive experience, because you know, we see so much division. You know, this is a year of where people have been going in all sorts of directions with politics and what have you.
Right.
But this is void of that, right?
That's right.
I mean, this is raw experiences, and it allows us to just truly be humans and people of compassion.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, and just the way that people have come out of the woodwork to call or text or offer support. You know, I mean, we went to Mountain City on Monday, and I didn't have text message. I didn't have any signal or anything. But when I left the house, I think I made a Facebook post or something and said, "This is what we're doing." You know, I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but like, here's and I put my information out there, Venmo and stuff, and then I went into town, and I didn't have any signal, and we had been working, and I got into town, and then all of a sudden it was like, you have $1,700 in your account, you know. I'm like, wow. In like a couple hours, people had already donated, and so I partnered up with, and I'm on the board of Wilkes Youth Life Development, so you all know Luke Jarvis and Wilkes Youth Life Development. They're doing great work, and you know, I guess he's got the trailer, so I think that was kind of where we started. Was they're used to doing this outreach, and although this is a little bit of a stretch even for Wild, but we had the equipment, we had the trailer, we had the connections, and so we sort of linked up and we started making these things happen. And I pushed a lot of the money to Wild to pay for. So what was cool about it was, you know, I covered my fuel, and then Luke would take his teens and high school kids to the store to shop for supplies with the money that we had raised. So that was a great way for them to get involved. And then they helped us load trailers and pack up and unpack and sort and things like that. And then
how'd they do? I mean, were they? I mean, obviously you're doing this task, right? But the purpose for the task, were they also emotionally moved by this?
I think so. I mean, these kids have a really I don't even know what the word is, but just infinite optimism, right? Like they are optimistic about the world. You know, they think they're invincible, and it comes in handy in times like this. And so, you know, like their work ethic and you know, just the way that these kids conduct themselves has been really super impressive. And I think they recognize the gravity of the situation, and they're eager to play a role and support us in some capacity. They're not, maybe old enough to drive a truck and a trailer, but they can help in other ways, and everybody's willing to do something. And, like I said earlier, is basically don't sweat the small stuff. Some people have, they have a full-time job and they have to work overtime, or they work in an essential job. Like I have friends that are school teachers and they can't leave, and I have friends that have newborns and they're at home with the newborn because nobody else can be there with them, but they find other ways, and every little bit, count. And that's what I love about this community, is that some people have a little bit and some people have a lot, but everybody gives something. And that just, to me, is what makes Wilkes a special place.
It's the heart, right?
Yep.
It's the heart of the community. So we may not agree on everything, but we don't have to.
That's right.
We come from different backgrounds, different experiences, different economics, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
How does this change us? How does this change things for the future? Because it's not a small thing and it's far from over. Yeah,
I think all of our communities are so interconnected, and that's this is going to take a long time. So our goal is to maintain the awareness and keep people engaged in the cleanup process, so that when the news dies down, that hey, we're still cleaning up and we still need your support. And one of the things now that it's been a week after the storm is that, we're in our peak leaf season, we're in our peak Christmas trees, and, this is the time of year when the fall, and you have festivals and all these things, and, our businesses rely on this time of year to sustain them throughout, the rest of the season and during the slower times that we have. So, our businesses are also contributing individually, either out of their own pockets or by donating food or inventory or services from their respective businesses, and they depend on tourist and other retail dollars to help them survive and to continue their outreach efforts. So it's important that we let people know, that our businesses are open. Here's the good work that they're doing. This is how you can support them. We have displaced families in town. You could buy them a meal or buy a drink for an emergency worker when they get off a shift, or buy them a gift card to a restaurant and let them.
Small acts of kindness.
Yeah.
Often.
Yes. Yeah. Right. For sure. Yeah. So and again, like when we've gone places, I've made sure to wear my Wilkes swag, and tell people we're from Wilkes by God County, and we're,
right.
And we have a good, we share a laugh, and we lift each other up, and I want them to know that the community that is their neighbor we're physically here and we're physically present, and we see you and we love you, and we're holding them up, right? And the same thing goes with these people that are staged in our community, whether they're helping on the front lines or maybe they're displaced. We want to wrap them up and let them know that we're going to take care of them for however long it takes, and they're welcome here, and we have what it takes to support them while they're here, and we want them to feel loved.
Are you encouraged by the support that's there now and the longevity that is going to be required to keep this going?
Yeah, I definitely am overwhelmed by the amount of support, which I knew that I'm not surprised by Wilkes and how eager and enthusiastic people show up. That doesn't surprise me at all, but we want to make sure that people understand that this is a long game. This is going to be a super marathon, and we don't want people to get burned out. We want to take turns and tag people in when the time is right, and make sure that people are working within their limits, because we don't need everybody to burn out, and then 6 weeks down the road, there's nobody
to keep it going, because it has to go.
That's right. Yeah.
So what are those? What's that toolbox look like? To help us balance, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing a lot of drives, and then by the end of the week, I had, I think, at least 3 or 4 volunteers of people that were willing to drive, and so and then I was doing a lot of basically I would get up in the morning. And like that trip to Mitchell, that took me the better part of 2 days to organize. So I was out volunteering, and then I come home at night, and I would communicate with people to try to figure out what to do next. And then by the end of the week, we had people that were coming out and saying, I can do this, and I can go here, and I have this, and and I've talked to all these people. So I now had the ability to say, okay, this person, you go here with this, and this person, you go here with that. Mm-hmm. And, the port strike was happening, so we had a little bottleneck of supplies there, and then thankfully that got remedied before the week was over, and then the supply floodgates opened up because the Speedway stepped up, and they had a bunch of the race trucks come up and drop stuff off. Emergency management had received a bunch of donations, our police departments, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but, just how everybody was collecting, and then those needs were met pretty quick, and even more so, like they were overwhelmed with supplies. You know what I mean? Right. So now our our plan now is to take a step back. We've started staging supplies at a location, organizing them. And people's needs have evolved even this week because of the cold weather and everything else that's happening. It went from 85 degrees to now it's going to be in the 30s.
And that's a huge difference, and a whole different set of needs that people are going to have, right?
That's right, yeah. And so, as people's power comes back on, they're not going to want to eat MREs anymore. Their water service comes back, they're not going to want to drink bottled water anymore. So we have to anticipate all that. So also we have to, people are moving towards a more traditional distribution model, right? So we're going into communities where they're trying to move away from this hand loading and hand unloading. They want to receive palletized goods, and they've got a place, a warehouse or something like that, where they want to receive it, because that volunteer manpower is not always going to be there.
Right.
And it's just so exhausting and time consuming and really inefficient to hand load and hand unload goods. We had to do that to get people taken care of. But
isn't that a commentary on the vastness of the problem and the length of time that this is going to continue to go on? So, and a lot of the arguments and concerns that people are having may not be taking that into consideration, right?
Yeah.
Because just as you explained, it's for the long haul, and there's got to be that area of distribution. I mean, you can't take loads of things up every day forever, right? You've got to keep doing, you've got to do other things as well.
Yep.
So it's important for people to give, but it's really good to have the news that there are some organized systems in place that are going to help take care of people for the long haul and get them through the winter.
That's right. Yeah, and the DOT has done a tremendous job up in that area fixing roads. I mean, we saw it myself, driving on the same roads multiple days, how each day those roads were getting a little bit better and then way better, and then, kind of like, oh, there's nothing really, they're okay now. So connecting those routes where tractor trailers can get through is going to be a huge step towards helping people's long-term stability and taking the load off, no pun intended, from the volunteer effort, so that we're not having to work so much to fulfill the most basic needs. It's much more efficient to load on a truck with a forklift and offload it somewhere else, and then they can break it down and distribute it from there. There's people on the other end, on the receiving end, that can package it in trucks and take it to the people who can't get out or can't, instead of us having to go all the way there and, find these people and get it to them. And they know all the hills and hollers in their area.
Right. Well, I think that's it. Every community is tackling things from their way.
Yeah.
And the people of Wilkes are not only tackling the things that are close, but a lot of people are going to great distances to help serve this need. Yeah. And there again, I think it just speaks to the heart of the people, right?
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah. So the future, I mean, how do we, obviously we're going to get through this, but how do we see the future as it comes to, we have one of the most visited parks in America. People come during the fall. They come all throughout the year, but it's closed indefinitely now.
Yeah.
So, which means it doesn't mean forever. It's just we're no idea when this is going to be opened up. So, from that side, what is that conversation like? I know it's still early within the tourism industry, but I'm sure there has to be conversations going on about how does everybody survive and get through this, that own hotels, that own restaurants, that have invested so much of their time, talent, and resources to be around that wonderful asset. And Wilkes County is one of those areas, right?
Yeah, we have two of the three most visited national parks, the Great Smoky Mountains and the Blue Ridge Parkway. And the Blue Ridge Parkway, I think, sustained a decent amount of damage Thankfully, the gateway communities in and around the park are still accessible. So, what I could see happening is where the park might open in stages. If there's little, because it was already under construction. So, there were certain sections that were open and then you had to get off. And so I could see something like that happening. We're actually, the Parkway Association is getting together here in Wilkes tomorrow and Wednesday.
Okay.
So this is October the 7th, and we're going to meet on October the 8th and 9th to have our fall meeting. And so I think a big part of the conversation will be, how do we do this together?
Right.
How do we move? Because there were areas of Tennessee that were affected. There were areas of, North Georgia that were impacted by the storm. So all of those, and Virginia. So all these areas where the Parkway runs. So I do think there's an opportunity for gateway communities and for little stretches of roads that maybe parallel the Parkway, and we could probably string together an alternate route. It's going to take literally an act of Congress to get the funds because
Sure.
it took years to get this infrastructure package, and really it took COVID to get that, which was able to help us get the necessary maintenance to the Parkway, which they were working on. And now, it's going to take hundreds of millions, if not billions, to repair the damage that was done from Helene, and that's going to take an act of Congress to get that done. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to move swiftly on that. The economic impact of the Parkway and its surrounding gateway communities is tremendous. The amount of visitation. So I feel certain, though, that our industry is going to be able to find a way to get through that and create an equally wonderful experience that gets you close to the Parkway and in and around. Our messaging has been about making sure that people understand what areas are they able to access, what roads are open, who's ready and willing. So kind of like, I guess, like the end stages of COVID, when you had different businesses had different levels of service based
Sure.
on what their nature of their business was, if it was outdoor or if it was like a tiny coffee shop,
So maybe you'll look at Wilkes and look at all the assets, the outdoor assets that were in Wilkes County,
Yep.
and then you'll see what's in these different areas that are safely accessible.
Yeah.
So Wilkes may have highly excel in one area. I don't know how the biking trails are, because I know they're really popular, and the greenways and
I think they got covered up to some extent, but a lot of those areas are back open and accessible.
Okay.
And we've got a lot of wonderful natural beauty scenery, like Moravian Falls. It's
Sure.
not a state park, but that's a fun. And they host cabins there, and you can stay there. And if you check in with the owners, they'll let you come and look at the fountain or the falls. And we have lots of areas around our wineries, and those are in the eastern part of the county. And
so as you go through the process with your meetings this week and everybody's looking at their assets, then over the next month or so, I would imagine there'll be a list of things that people can go and have some type of a leaf experience or a fall experience. And then here we are at Christmas too. So
and we're working with the High Country host to put together a sort of routes that take people to areas that they know we can get them in and out safely, and they don't have to travel on any impacted roads. And basically where we can do the best that we can to provide some kind of economic stimulation to our businesses that, and I was encouraged today to talk with the Christmas tree folks. They say the Christmas trees were basically unaffected by the storm, and, they expect the Christmas tree farms to be up and running at normal time, and that, there may be they may have to put some extra gravel down and stuff, but and that's encouraging because of course your farms are out in the country, so if a city or town is impacted by water damage or road damage or something, they can still get to the Christmas tree farm and have a real farm experience. And then we see a lot of Christmas tree traffic come through Wilkes, and they stop here and grab a bite to eat, or have a drink, or stay for the night, or attend a show or something like that. Of course, we have all of our wonderful Christmas programming down here. So those are going to be definitely ways that we can lean into and help promote the tourism.
So over the next few weeks, then, we could expect to see from your side some information being shared about these assets that people can experience, all at the same time while we're still helping take care of folks as they're going through their probably the most difficult part of their life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like it myself. So, but yeah, the roads are getting fixed rapidly, and I'm really impressed to see once those routes start to open up, it's going to make tourism more easily accessible, and we're able to facilitate and satisfy those customers and provide them with a great experience. With all the hard work that everybody's putting in, that time is here to a certain extent, but it will be much better very soon.
Yeah, great. Thomas, thank you for coming in. I know you've got to be tired. You've been on the road this week and just doing the good work that needs to be done. So thank you for doing that from a human standpoint, and keeping your hand on the pulse of tourism and keeping us up to date on the good things that will be coming. So in the next few weeks, whenever that's all figured out, then we'll get back together and kind of share that plan with everybody so that we have a good handle on what's happening.
Yeah, I did want to say too, and I don't know if we want to cut this back into the earlier part of the conversation, but during this time where people are desperate and in need, this is the chance. This is the only way that I know how to promote Wilkes County tourism. Right, like we can't tell people to come here necessarily, but we can go out into the public and let them know we're here from Wilkes County.
Right.
We support you, we see you, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of just connecting with people and being face to face, and so that to me I felt like was the best way that I could promote Wilkes County by being there for our neighbors when they were in need.
Right, and a lot of your neighbors here are that Army.
That's right. Yep.
So it lets people know that the people of Wilkes County have a big heart.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.